right to use name. So, Nick, there are some basic fundamental principles that I know you understand. And the individual is entitled to use his or her own name in any legitimate way, but generally, in the absence of statute conferring such right, one has no exclusive right to its use unless a question of trade or business purpose or special injury to character, reputation, or property is involved. So that name, you don't have exclusive use. Others have use of it too. So you can't claim it's yours because yours implies ownership. You can imply a right of use, but not ownership. Property defined. So property is typically not the tangible item. It is the rights and use in the item. And a name is also an item. See, if you could say it was your property, then you could have exclusive rights. Right here. Property also has been described as unrestricted and exclusive right to a thing, the right to dispose of it in every legal way, to possess it, use it, or to exclude everyone else from interfering with it. Can you stop others from using that name? How many different people use the name? Oh, would the credit bureaus use the name and sell information based on that name that they have a right to do until challenged and prove otherwise? Oh, yes, because that is their business structure. What about banks? Banks have a right to use that name and they give you an account with that name on it. But who owns the account? Ultimately, the bank does. You just have a right of use. So, when you're looking at this, I know you've heard the term first in line, first in time. Well, who's on top of the card? Who's first in line? Social Security. And I have a phone call that I showed where I asked Social Security who owned the name in the account. And once I explained my position, they said they don't feel comfortable answering the question because they know what it would imply. Would the account exist
Okay.
without the name?
So I'm I'm not comfortable answering your questions because I don't.
But here's some logical questions. Who bought the paper? The government. Who printed the paper? The government. Who issued the paper? The government. Who has the exclusive right to withdraw it from you? The government. And if you don't believe me, how about looking at the back of the card? Look at that fourth sentence down. This card is property of the Social Security Administration and must be returned upon request. Period. And I know you understand simple grammar. That period is a completion of a thought. And the very next thought says, if found, return. In other words, if you dropped it or lost it and somebody finds it, that's who they're to return it to. But the first thought, if they request it, they have every right to get it back because it is their property. That includes the name. Because have you ever, like I said, have you ever created an account without a name? See, there's a difference between exclusive ownership and rights of use. And I know you understand this. See, they even admit when you know how to read their stuff what they did. If you look right here, starting right there, it says the money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people of the nation. And we went over the definition of property. That includes rights and interest and sometimes titles. Well, there has to be consideration in any contract, and they express the consideration. But have you read the congressional record, March 9th, 1933, about what happened? Have you read the Federal Emergency Relief Act, May 12th, 1933? Have you read the congressional records and the different acts that was passed because of the banking holiday that is still in force and effect to this day? See, Nick, I've read a lot of this stuff, and I just put it together and say there's certain fundamental principles that make sense. And when it makes sense, I don't have a problem talking to them. And sometimes when I ask them the right questions, I get the right answers. Now go back to that case you were saying. You're missing one thing. See, one, the driver's license and the birth certificate is double hearsay. But if you look right here, the SJC took care to clarify that to the extent any of its earlier cases had suggested that a person has a legal name or a name with legal effect different from the name he has lawfully chosen. At what point did you choose who you are? See, you have the right when you become competent and reach age of majority, and age of majority has nothing to do with your age, it has to do with your competency. You have the right to declare who you are at any given time as long as it's for a lawful purpose and it's not fraudulent. See, that's the thing you're not thinking about. Look right here. It says, regarding the so called certificate of birth, it is obvious that, again, due to the defendant's own testimony, the ground stated by defendant at trial for his objection is feckless. He testified that his mother was named Bertie Williams. State's Exhibit number 13 listed the mother of the person whose date of birth was given as Bertie Williams. It would have been, however, a proper ground of objection that State Exhibits number 13 is not really a certified copy of any official record, so as to be admissible under the general statutes, and they list them. The exhibit, while labeled a certified certificate of birth, purports to be an original document, which, over the signature of a deputy registrar, merely summarizes certain information, which is apparently recorded in the Office of Vital Statistics in Mecklenburg County on birth certificate number 868. Thus, State's Exhibit number 13 is no more than the deputy registrar's assertion of what she found on the record, on the recorded birth certificate. As such, it was double hearsay and inadmissible. Why is it double hearsay? Hearsay, because one, it's not the actual record that they have in their file. They'll never give you that. And then the certificate of live birth is just an assertion by the deputy registrar of what's in the record. Well, if you don't have the actual record, how do you know what's actually recorded? Was it actually you, or was it an event? Which they'll tell you they don't record babies, they record events. What was that event? So you can make a presumption what that event is, but a presumption is not necessarily a fact.